Today, we're going to go outside of our normal realm of focusing on women in front of the screen to talk about a trailblazer behind the scenes, costume designer Vera West. West created some of the silver screen's most iconic costumes, including Ava Gardner's Black Dress and the Killers and Maria Montez's Daring Gowns and Cobra Woman. However, her death continues to be one of Hollywood's biggest mysteries. Vera Flounders was born on June 26, 1897 in Philadelphia. Although some people claim she was born in 1898, census records and the Social Security Death Index all support her being born in 1897. Her mother, Lillian, was frequently ill after giving birth to her. Around 1900, Lillian's family took both her and Vera into their home, while Vera's father, Emer, rented a room from May E. Mann. I don't know why Emer lived away from the family, as Lillian's parents owned their home. Sadly, Lillian passed away on July 20th, 1900 at 32 years old, about a month after her daughter's third birthday. In 1902, Emer married Clara Ridge, a woman 13 years his junior. Clara and Emer would go on to have two children, Hazel and Emer Jr., with the latter passing away shortly before his first birthday. In 1908, it appears that a man named Frank Van Griff took custody of Vera, but this seems to have been a temporary arrangement. Emer passed away at the ripe old age of 46 in 1917. Vera continued to live with Clara, working as a dressmaker at a factory or shop by 1920. Although there are stories that Vera attended the Philadelphia School of Design for Women, I don't see where she graduated if she even attended in the first place. There are also stories about her being a top designer for Saks Fifth Avenue or working for Lady Duff Gordon for 4 years in New York in the early to mid-1920s, but newspaper records show she was still living with Clara in 1924 when she married Stephen Decatur Kill. It seems more likely that Vera worked herself up from a dressmaker at a factory or shop into a designing role. Vera married Kill on March 1st, 1924. According to Keel, Vera abandoned him a few months later on July 12th after stealing $467.50. He filed suit against her that December. We're going to get back to this in a minute. With some money in hand, I would say this is likely when Vera moved to Los Angeles to begin working in films. I want to note here that there are absolutely no official records for Vera from 1925 until she pops up again on the census in 1930 as being married to beauty supply salesman Jacques West and living in Los Angeles. Vera was using his name when she worked on 1928's The Man Who Laughed, so I would say it's safe to assume they were together by, at the absolute latest, 1927. However, there are no marriage records for the couple, and it's likely they were never actually married. After several years at work for Universal, including completing the costume research for a number of 1932 features, West really started to garner attention in 1935. Her work was frequently featured in newspapers, and she even joined the advisory board for Woodbury College's fashion design program. She received attention for being one of the best-dressed women in Hollywood and would occasionally give fashion advice via newspaper articles. She also changed her birthplace from Philadelphia to the much more glamorous New York City. In 1936, West was billed as Universal's head designer. It's very likely she received this promotion well before, but I doubt she was their head designer in 1928, as some writers have claimed. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to 1947. West left Universal in the spring and was expanding out to regular wear, designing swimsuits for the Catalina Company, one of California's most iconic swimsuit brands at the time, as well as designing for a shop at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. It seems likely that West was looking to expand out into some ready-to-wear fashions for the average woman. She passed away on June 28th, and that's where things get interesting. Page 2 of June 30th's Los Angeles Times ran with Vera West, designer, takes life hinting at blackmail. The article claimed West had been Universal's head designer since 1926, a claim I personally doubt, and had worked for 4 years as a stylist in New York. Again, this probably isn't true either. The article also said that Jacques, now going by Jack, West, was away on a business trip in Northern California where he'd read the news in a paper. Here's the official story. On the 29th, former life photographer and boarder in the West Guest House, Robert T. Landry, discovered her nightgown-clad body at approximately 3:30 a.m. in the pool after noticing all of the lights were on in the house and her Scottish Terriers, Tammy and Duffy, were barking nonstop. West left 2 suicide notes. The first said, "This is the only way. I am tired of being blackmailed." The other said, "The fortune teller told me there was only one way to deduct the blackmail I've paid for 23 years. Death." Her notes were addressed to someone named Jack Chandler. This is where accounts on Vera begin to differ. For example, friends know that Vera was an accomplished swimmer, while Jack claimed she wouldn't even go near the pool unless he was nearby. Jack said she was mentally disturbed and always claiming she was persecuted and blackmailed, while her friends claimed she never said anything like that to them. Interestingly, on July 1st, Jack suddenly changed his story to say that he wasn't actually on a business trip in Northern California. The couple had actually had a fight on Saturday night, and after she threatened to divorce him, he left to go to Santa Barbara. However, he never made it there, instead either slept in his car or slept at the Beverly Hills Hotel. At this point, the case got so nuts that the coroner's office refused to sign her death certificate until all testing was completed, although they noted drowning was the most likely cause of death. And then the case just stopped being news, minus a couple items like her funeral information for July 3rd and the coroner's July 10th decision that alcohol and sleeping pills contributed to her death. So here's where we are going to do some detective work. Although some sources place Vera's first husband, Stephen Keel, as having passed away in 1931, the man was actually very much alive and didn't pass away until November 28th, 1966, at the age of 87. Here's how that confusion happened. An older Stephen D. Keel was born on April 30th, 1856, and passed away on February 22nd, 1931. Vera's Stephen D. Keel was born on either March 24th or August 15th, 1879. Anyone who knows old birthdays will know it's not uncommon for birthdays to get reported differently. Marriage records show that elder Keel was married to Margaret Fowler Norcom, a woman he married in 1916 and who he was very much still married to in 1931 when he died. If he was committing bigamy, I doubt he would have risked suing Vera in 1924. Census records also prove the younger Keel worked as an electronic typewriter laborer, a position he held until his death. As I was editing, I realized that there may still be some confusion as these people's middle initials and birthdays sometimes change. We know that she had to marry the younger Keel because he was the only Stephen D. Keel living at 3309 18th Street in 1920 and 1930. This is the same address he gave on their marriage license application. So, going back to Vera, we need to re examine her suicide note. And she says she's been blackmailed for 23 years. 23 years before her death, she'd stolen money from and abandoned Stephen Keel. It's not all impossible. Their legal husband was blackmailing her for money, something Jack West wouldn't have divulged to the police, being it would have made his marriage to her null and void. As for Keel, it's unlikely he would have come forward to admit to blackmailing, causing his ex wife's suicide. Even if he decided he wanted to, West liquidate everything, change his name, and was not heard from again after 1948. This then brings us to Jack's constantly changing stories about where he was that night. West detailed a horrific fight that caused him to leave the house and spend the night somewhere else. Police seem to have taken West at his word, closing the case within a week. Personally, I think Jack acted a bit odd, including having the couple's home they'd shared for nearly 2 decades demolished a few months after her death and leaving town never to be heard from again. I won't go too deep into speculation, but I don't think it's impossible the despondent Vera, tired of the blackmail and fighting with Jack, washed down sleeping pills with alcohol before getting in the pool. Jack witnessed this and simply abandoned her rather than calling for help. What do you think happened to Vera West? Do you think she died by her own hand, or do you think something more nefarious was at play? Let me know in the comments below.